Welcome back to Overtime here on WOTM. Former Alabama wide receiver Julio Jones made a little bit of noise today. He was on an interview with FS1 this morning where he made the comment about possibly returning back to the Atlanta Falcons. His quote was, "I'm out of there." Now, he was talking to Shannon Sharp on the morning debate show, Undisputed. It now poses the question two ways. Number one, where is the best fit for Julio? And number two, do you see Atlanta making a move anytime soon here to try to get some value out of one of the best receivers that we've seen in NFL history?
Well, I mean, at his age, at 32 years old, you probably aren't going to get as much as you would, obviously a couple of years ago. I remember when Keyshawn Johnson, right, I think that at the height of his career, the Jets traded him for 2 first-round picks.
Right.
I don't know if you could even get a first-round pick at this point for Julio Jones, even though he's put together great numbers. At a guy who's 32 and going into the back end of his career, even though wide receivers now, you see Larry Fitzgerald, they can play for a lot longer. And look at what Brady's done. I mean, he's just kind of starting, if you want to compare him to Brady. But I think that for what Jones brings to a team, A.J. Green is another guy that's got a little bit of that too, where you don't know what his value is going to be because he's a little bit older, even though he's put together a pretty good NFL career. But I thought that Atlanta was going to, if you look at what they've done, generally they'll struggle for a couple of years. We looked at from 2010 to 2012, they did well. Then they struggled from 2013 and 2015. Then they make it to the Super Bowl, and then they make it to the playoffs and lose to the Eagles. So they kind of go in spurts, and they're due for another spurt where they come around and they play well again. So maybe, I thought that that's what they were going to do, that they reinvested with Matt Ryan. We just looked at as 10 straight 4,000-yard seasons, and with Kyle Pitts, reestablishing that offense as one of the most dominant in football. They have a lot of weapons, not only with him and Calvin Ridley, and you add Pitts to that, that's a pretty good offense, but I don't know if they can stop anybody.
Exactly, and they play in a division that's going to be really interesting this year. You have the defending Super Bowl champions with Tampa Bay. You have a team now in the New Orleans Saints who are still looking for their guy. A new quarterback over in Carolina. So it's a division that is really, really interesting. Also, another big thing for them is money, because Julio Jones is fully guaranteed $15 million next year. He's got a little over $30 million left overall on his 3-year deal. I don't know if he has to restructure his deal, but I think that it does kind of cement some of the teams that can't actively pursue him. I do think the team that tries to go get him and has to be aggressive to go get him needs to be a team that can, number one, absorb that payment, how much money he's owed. But then also, number two, you have to be a win-now team. I think he's in a part of his career where he is win-now.
Yeah.
If it's trading, he doesn't have much of a say if he wants all of his money. But where is a good fit do you see for Julio Jones? What team do you think might need a receiver desperately enough, or maybe a receiver away from winning a championship?
Well, I think it's so hard to tell when you're talking about that high and those kind of salary cap numbers. Where he would fit in. Tennessee maybe is a place where you could go, where you can at least complement and be with not a former teammate, because they weren't teammates, but another Alabama guy and Derrick Henry. Kansas City, I'm sure if they can work it down to where he doesn't take much, where he can go and kind of fit in, kind of like Antonio Brown, the way he did with Tampa. And probably, a place like Carolina or Seattle would work out. Green Bay, I think, would be perfect if Aaron Rodgers wants to stay and get a wide receiver. That would probably work out well for him. So those would be a couple good places.
I think Green Bay, it was the one that you hit on. I think that if they would do a whole lot of good if they can get Julio Jones. They would do a lot of good with their quarterback, and I was trying to get him back in the facility. He's not at Team OTAs right now. Another team being tossed around, 2 other teams being tossed around out of the AFC, which is, I think, where Atlanta would want to go. They want to get him out of the conference. Get him out of the conference. But 2 teams I keep hearing about, and I think kind of make a lot of sense, is the Baltimore Ravens.
Baltimore,
And they could really use some help with Lamar Jackson, and also the New England Patriots. They've spent a lot of money in free agency. They've spent a lot of money in this offseason, and they got some good draft picks. But I think those are 2 teams that could work. But
and Miami too, maybe.
Miami, with get them in there with Tua as well.
Tua and Waddle.
Exactly, and that'll make a really interesting division there in the AFC East. So really interesting things. So we'll see where Julio Jones lands. We'll be on Julio Jones' watch as OTAs continue on. The Atlanta Falcons try to make a trade for number 11. Well, coming up next here on Overtime, we will close up shop, and we'll see you here in just a bit.